You're listening to The Rich Life Revolution with me, Michelle Cooper. My mission is to empower you to step into your next level of wealthy. You'll hear all the deets, a little bit of inspiration, and real life takeaways so that you can create your own rich life revolution. Let's dig in. Hey girl, hey, welcome to The Rich Life Revolution. I am your host, Michelle, and today I have an amazing guest. Sandra became a friend of mine. We both joined the Entreprenista organization, and we connected so much in common and so much to do with money. But the biggest thing was that we both love travel. So travel is a lifeline for a lot of people. And if you know me, you know that is absolutely, certainly true for me. And over the past few years, the doors to the whole world have opened to more and more folks who seize the opportunity to go beyond vacation days and see far-flung countries while they put in their work hours. And in this episode, we're going to dive in to what it means to be a digital nomad. So this episode really is key for that digital nomad listener working out of a different coffee shop or Airbnb every month. I see you, girl. But whether you've made the planet your office or you continue to pack adventures into 2 to 3 weeks a year, Sandra Morno has some inspo for both your wandering feet and your tax returns. Sandra was shifting her tax strategy business to a completely online model even before the pandemic prompted most of us to spruce up our home offices. By the time the country opened up again, this travelnista was ready to take her number crunching skills and her business, SSBM Consulting, on the road full time. As she navigated the pitfalls and the little mysteries of filing taxes as an American living outside of America, Sandra realized that if she was asking these questions, then other traveling entrepreneurs had to be asking them too. And so the money smart travelnista client persona was born. Women who travel while they work became Sandra's bread and butter. So let's dive in and hear all the deets about this amazing kind of new-ish way of working and traveling the world. All right. Hey, Sandra, how are you?
I'm good, Michelle. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. So excited to talk to you today. I just adore you. Think that you're so amazing. You know, we kind of met a little randomly through the Entreprenista League and had a great connection. And so we're developing a friendship and a relationship. And so, yeah, I just think you're amazing. So thank you for taking the time to join me on the Rich Life Revolution podcast today.
Thank you. Thank you for just giving me this opportunity. Like you said, like we meshed, when we're numbers people, there's something that we all have in common. And I just love that.
Yeah, totally. I would love for you to share a little bit about yourself. Where are you at right now? Like right now, you're physically in Miami, but that's not where you live. Like, tell us, what's your life look like right now?
Oh, well, like I guess now is like summertime. I actually came back to surprise my mom for Mother's Day because I was just like, yeah, you're not gonna get me for the holidays, so let's get a compromise going, right? I'm here for Mother's Day and hopefully her birthday. But yeah, I have been traveling Latin America for the last 3.5 years, really in my search of trying to find a home outside of the US. So it's been fun, definitely been interesting, and I love it. And I can't wait to kind of find a place that I can call home again.
And so the kind of term to, if we put you in a group of people, they'd be called digital nomads. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And there's a lot of people, I think, who are excited about that idea. I know several people who are doing this. Our world is a different place nowadays, and we're able to, work from anywhere kind of thing. And people have I have a couple of friends who've sold off everything they got and they're traveling the world and living wherever they feel like it. And, you're doing something similar. So just kind of tell us a little bit about like what do you do in your professional life that enables you to travel the world and live wherever you feel like it.
So I'm a tax strategist. I've actually been doing taxes for the last 15 years. I still can't believe it. And, with technology, I actually stopped seeing clients physically like in 2017 because I was just like, yeah, you kind of sitting in my face for like 2 hours kind of gave me a little bit of anxiety, right? And it takes time to really do a tax return like to the full capacity for a business client. I need to do some research. I don't want to just put anything on that tax return and it doesn't serve my client. So I kind of cut my clients off and, we just did the old fashioned route, like uploading to a portal, emailing, phone calls, texting. And then in 2018, I had to move home, back home from Houston because I had some health issues. And that's where I really kind of just started to look at my life, of course, after COVID. But actually, backtrack. January of 2020, I went to Morocco because I was just like, it's time to travel. And then the world shut down 2 months later. So I had to kind of reassess and wait a bit. And then in 2021 is when I just started taking it full force and still been able to, help all my clients wherever they are, with the power of Zoom and just technology. It's allowed me to just be anywhere to help them.
Right. And like you now specialize in digital nomad clients, right? Like, and in their tax strategy, which is very unique, right?
Yep, and I did it because I kind of consider myself my avatar because I was just like, wow, okay, there's a there's a lot of moving pieces to me constantly moving and figuring out where my tax home is, where my home office is, and I'm thinking to myself, if I'm having these questions, then the average business owner is going to have the same issues, right? And wonder, well, what do I write off? What can I write off? And I want to just give them that help and guide them because there's a lot of credits out there for Americans that they can pretty much get all their tax money back, and write off most of their income. So I want to be that resource for them.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And I would offer that many of them aren't even thinking about this, right? Like they're just, they're traveling, they're looking around, they're experiencing life. They're not thinking about, oh, where's my tax residence and what do I need to file kind of thing, right? Which is what happens in my business, right? Where I refer people to you because they haven't filed for years. And and all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, hang on. What do I have to do here?" Right? Cuz like you said, if you are having questions, the average person, like, and you're very well educated in this area, the average person is probably completely lost.
Right, right. And not knowing how to, not even filing, like you said. I've run across people who haven't filed, and I'm like, oh no, that's not how this works. As long as you have a U.S. passport, you have to file taxes. You may not owe, but you still need to be compliant.
Still have to file. Yeah, I think I don't know if I shared this story with you, but I did have a client who was living in Mexico and hadn't filed US taxes, didn't tell us. Like they had another accountant, like we were bookkeepers for them. They had an accountant, didn't tell us that they hadn't filed taxes. And then when she went home because her mom was sick, her passport got seized because she hadn't filed taxes.
Oh my goodness. See, and see, people, they don't even realize.
Yeah. And I was like, well, you didn't, she was all upset with me. And I was like, we're your bookkeeper. Like, we're not filing your taxes. You didn't engage us for that. You told us you had an accountant who was taking care of that. And she was like, well, I just thought, I didn't have to. Okay. You have a US business. You're a US citizen. Like taxes are a part of life, right? And it's all good because what I know is that when people move into, like a survival state or like a state of confusion, their default is to do nothing. Well, I won't do anything because I don't know what to do. And so they don't file and then eventually it catches up some way or another, right? And in her situation it was quite severe.
And there's two people I don't play with, and that's the IRS and student loans. Like whatever you need me to do, I will do it because they are the powers that be. They
Agreed.
really just kind of enjoy your life if they want to.
I don't play with the IRS or the border control people. I had somebody when I was coming back from Greece, they made some kind of joke about like having something in their bag. I was like, get away from me. Don't stand near me. Like, I'm not interested. Like, I am not interested in this conversation. I'm trying to find another line to go to. Like, I was like, no, everybody can hear everything in this lineup right now. Like, I don't know these people.
Oh my God, well, that's so true. Like, especially getting stuck in another country. Oh, it was
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I don't play. I'm not a player in those areas. Oh God. So you mentioned something here which I'm really interested in my listeners hearing a little bit of your story and the transformation of your life. And you mentioned that you had some health challenges, you needed to move from Houston back home, which I think is Florida. Can you share a little bit of what life was like before you decided to make the change and go and travel in Latin America?
so it really all started in 2018. I had this, it's like I woke up one morning and I was just like, I don't want to be in the US anymore. And I started doing some research and I have some friends who are in the military and I was just like, well, where can I go that's safe? And they were just like, nowhere in the Middle East. So had a conversation with some people and they were just like Thailand. And I was just like, okay, but that's really far. But, I think God had some other plans. And so I ended up just having some health issues that had to make me move back home. So I kind of just stopped thinking about travel, right? It was just like, okay, Sandra, let's focus on getting better. And that took me about a year and a half to get better. And then I was ready. So I started doing some research. This was like December of 2019. I'm like, where can I go? What can I do? And so my first trip to Morocco was through an organization called Volunteer HQ. So I signed up, craziness, travel halfway across the world to teach kids for a week. And, the language there was French and Arabic. And I was just like, oh my goodness, I know a little bit of French. Let's just see how this goes. That trip was amazing. And I was just like, I want more of this. So I come back home and I'm like, all right, let's figure out this next trip. And then the world shuts down. And the funniest thing is while I was in Morocco, there was someone from China there. And she was just like, have you guys heard about what's going around? There's like this, this flu, this COVID thing. And I was just like, oh, that's not going to hit the United States. We're not worried about that. Like, we're wide open. Yeah, lo and behold. The whole world was affected by COVID, this pandemic. So, I during COVID, I didn't stop dreaming, didn't stop thinking about it. And then I had a friend reach out to me September of 2020, and she was just like, I'm going to Mexico for a month. And I was just like, I can do what I do from anywhere. Why wouldn't I do this? So I basically included myself into her trip. And that started it. Like,
It's like, I'm coming with you.
yeah, pretty much. And it's so funny because we were so excited because we had one other person in, Playa del Carmen, Mexico that we at least could count on. We know I was her emergency contact. She was mine. And that month was just amazing. I came back home and I started planning my next trip and I've just been doing that ever since.
That's awesome. What I love there that you said was that you didn't stop dreaming. So, like, I think sometimes kind of real life kicks in and there seems to be some kind of obstacle to an idea that we have. And, the pandemic was a huge obstacle to a lot of things. But at the same time, like you and I have talked about, it also opened the door to doing business very differently. You mentioned, deciding that you were going to see people in person anymore. Before the pandemic, in my business, we had a brick and mortar office up until the pandemic. And in the probably the 5 years before that, I kept saying, I really wish we could just be online. Like we could be a digital business. Like, why do we have to see people anymore? Why do we need this big office? Like, why is this all necessary? And then our working restrictions in Canada were pretty severe and we weren't allowed. The office was too small for the amount of people, and we tried all different ways of shift work and all the alternate days and all this stuff. And it just was painful. And it was like, you know what? We're just going to give this office up because we could at the time. It was like the government was like, we'll pay you basically to give up your office space. And so we took advantage of that and then just said to clients, like, this is the only way to see us now. So you either see us this way or you don't, right? And you're going to have to go to somebody else or not get your stuff done. But people were forced to adopt this new way. And, there's things, even myself, right? Like when we could be in person with people, I was like dying to be around people. But for my business, it was a huge shift. Like it actually helped us. So what I loved is that you said, like, you kept dreaming. Sometimes we have dreams and real life kicks in and they're not maybe doable right away, but it doesn't mean that we can't still keep our eyes on the prize. Was there anything that happened in your life that caused you to kind of question reality, like question how you were living? Was there like a significant event or anything that happened, or was it like a gradual shift?
I think it was a gradual shift, and and then eventually, I feel like not like life just kind of hit me, right? And I was just like, man, I'm tired of this hustle. I'm tired of this rat race of feeling like it's never ending. There has to be more to life than just working like this and not enjoying life, right? And so that to me, I'm working towards that reality. And it's so funny because my sister told me, she's just like, you used to talk about living on an island like years ago, like decades ago. Like you'd want to be a bum on someone's island, just living, maybe own a little shack, and that was you. And I was just like, ah, thank you for that reminder because I feel like that's what I'm working towards, right? As I find my home outside of the US, just really enjoying life. And that's one thing I've learned in the last 3.5 years. I see how people in Latin America live, and I'm just like, why can't we do that in the US or in Canada? Like, why do we have to work so hard? Like, why can't we have 2 hour lunches, right? Why can't we have less work days? Why can't we go outside and enjoy life a little bit and not just work, 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 work to get these material things or get the next big thing? Like, it's trained us that way, I feel like. So we have to kind of unprogram ourselves. And that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. Well, amen, sister, on that, right? Like I just come back from Greece and like I was in the Greek islands and I was walking through a little village on Naxos and there's people just sitting there in the middle of the afternoon having coffee and croissants or cakes or whatever and kids are running around playing football and I found myself saying like don't these people have jobs to go to, right? But like I'm like, Michelle, like what? That's conditioning, right? Like it's conditioning that like, oh, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Everybody should be working because that's what I would be doing if I was at home. And I agree. I think that there's a different way of living. Like when I was in Chile recently, again, I'm out in Santiago and it's the middle of the day. People are enjoying lunch and socializing. And then like it goes on all day. Like I could see people doing that in the morning, in the midday, in the early evening, late evening, right? It's like everybody's enjoying life 24/7, it seemed like. And I was kind of like, wow, what if I can incorporate some of this into my life? Right? Like, what if I can bring some of this home into my life? But you have to be so diligent in it because it's easy just to slip back in.
Yes, it is. As soon as you get back home, you're back in that mindset, right? Because it's not around you. When I was in Argentina, in Mendoza, like from 1:30 to 5:30, the side of town that I lived on shut down. The grocery stores were closed. So you are SOL if you're trying to find something to eat or get anything out and about because people are home eating, napping, just enjoying life. And I'm like, wow. At first it annoyed me, but then I kind of got used to it. Because I was just like, I can't fight it. I might as well just try to incorporate my life in the way that they're.
Yeah, it's so amazing. So, where have you lived? Like, tell us a little bit about your journey through Latin America.
So I've been to Merida, Mexico, Playa del Carmen, Mexico, Mexico City, Querétaro, San Miguel. These are all in Mexico. Then I've been to Panama City, Panama. I've been to Lima, Peru. I've been to Medellin, Colombia, and Buenos Aires, and Mendoza, Argentina. So yeah, I think it's all those countries that I've been to, and so far, my two top faves are Medellin, Colombia, and Lima, Peru.
Oh, wow. It's funny. So, I went to Peru and I did Machu Picchu and, all the things, right? One of the things I remembered the most was that, now this is really funny. The Burger King was like a nightclub. It had like chandeliers, it had a doorman, it had like dark windows and like neon lights. I'm like, what is that? That looks like a nightclub. And my guide was like, oh, that's Burger King. And I was like, what? That's crazy. So I thought that was really funny, right? Like you would think you remember, like, of course I remember Machu Picchu and, all that. But yeah. So do you speak Spanish?
I do. I speak enough to get by. So that's a good thing about being born and raised in Miami. Like, you're surrounded by Cubans, so you have no choice. So I can have a conversation. But another thing that I've learned is that accents are different, words are different. Like when I went to Argentina, they messed me all the way up with how they spoke, but I could get by. Yeah, there's certain words that they say are different, and they have like I feel like they try to add like an Italian accent to their Spanish, right? So certain words are like instead of saying pollo, they say pollo, and I was just like, oh yeah, no, that's not needed. Like, so it was interesting for sure.
Well, that's awesome. And do you plan on going outside Latin America?
Yeah, I do, but I feel like I want Latin America to be based, and I want to be fluent. I want to speak another language, and that's what I love about being in Latin America. It forces me to speak Spanish because I feel like, I mean, almost everywhere you go, Spanish is kind of native. So I'm like, we can't beat them. I got to join them, right? I got to be able to communicate with them. But eventually, I would like to make it to Europe. I definitely want to go back to Greece. I loved Athens and I love Santorini. I mean, there's nothing to do there, but it's just so beautiful. And I was okay with that. Yeah. So eventually, I'll see the world.
That's so good. I loved Athens. I thought that it was way cleaner than I expected. I didn't expect it to be as clean as it is. And for me, going to the Acropolis and seeing the Parthenon was like my be all end all because that when I was a little girl, I loved Greek mythology. I did a whole project on Athena and the Parthenon and made a little model and like was just it was my jam. And so it was just really surreal to just like be there, see it, be like standing on the ground kind of thing. So yeah, I think it's always awesome when you can visit places that you're kind of like, wow, like, this is something I never thought I'd see or I never thought I'd experience. So, yeah. Have you had any of those kind of things where you're like, wow, this is amazing?
I think that was in Medellin because they're in a mountain. So you live inside of a mountain, right? Like when the plane lands, it's just like, where are we going? Like I don't see where we're landing this contraption. But every night, like when I was there, I stayed in a high rise, so the view was just amazing from inside of this mountain, seeing all the lights and just seeing the mountains and just the weather was amazing. And I was just like, wow, this is awesome. Like I could see myself making this home. Like even if it rained, it kind of reminded me of Miami. Like it would rain and then sunshine, or monsoon and then sunshine. But that to me was just, I was just like, we live inside of a mountain, guys. Like how does that work? Like, like it was amazing.
That's awesome. So when you're thinking of going to a place, like, do you do a lot of planning? Are you a planner? Do you get into the specifics of where you're going to stay and what you're going to do? And
I do. I do. When I make up my mind on where I want to go, I'll see if there's a Facebook group or a community, several of them out there now, and I'll try to connect with one or two people, right? And kind of get the lay of the land. Then I figure out the dates. Then I see where I'm going to stay. Of course, Airbnb kind of runs the game. So I'll start with Airbnb, but I'm not going to stay there because it's so overly priced these days. And then I tell myself at least 3 months, and if I make it, I'll stay longer, or as long as the country will let you stay, right? Because some of them are 90 days, some of them are half a year, and that's kind of how I go about it. And what I've learned about myself is like I'm a foodie, so if the food's not good, I won't be there long.
it's like, I think when I first met you, you were in Argentina and you were like, do you like wine? Because this is the place to come. Right. And I was like, okay, good to know.
Yeah,
So you said like you start with an Airbnb. So like you book an Airbnb for a couple of weeks or something, and then you find something locally.
yeah, yeah. I'll do boots on the ground and see if I can find something else. Meet up with locals. 'Cause sometimes it's like I'm saving half as much. And I'm just like, oh, yeah, let's do this, you know? So yeah, that's what I've been learning to do. Like I'll give it about 30 days because I don't want to rush the process and I want to kind of learn the lay of the land and the area that I'm in. And I kind of try to be in expat areas, but not heavily influenced by it. Because of course they're a little safer. And that's what you want.
And so has your business grown in this period? Has it maintained? Has it dropped? But it doesn't matter. Like what's going on with your business while you experience this?
It's maintained, but what I love about this journey is that I feel like I'm growing in a community, right, of women that are like me that are traveling. And I just want to kind of focus on helping them. And because this is kind of like a new niche for me, I'm all about just getting that word out. Hey, you're not alone. I can help you, not just with your taxes, but travel. Like, let's create a community of just, travelers, like, and help each other. So that's the goal is to build that brand and hopefully be working with women that get it and understand the value of my services.
Yeah. That's the important thing, right? It's not just churning over numbers, it's the strategy behind the taxes. And that this is it's kind of like an emerging area, right? Like, it's not super common for people to be doing this. It's more common now than before, but it's like it's not everybody who's doing this. And I even I have one friend who was telling me that she's going to surrender her US citizenship. And I was like, please don't do that. Can you talk to somebody before you do that? Like, what's going on here? Right. And I think sometimes people, they read something or, I don't know, maybe they hear somebody say something and they like jump all in before doing the research. Right. And then I think there's also the aspect of like we don't think about the future sometimes, I think. I have a Canadian friend who severed ties with Canada, which means that she doesn't have a Canadian passport anymore. She's now a citizen of the United Arab Emirates, and she had to like sever all ties to Canada, no bank accounts, no nothing, right? And I'm like, what happens when you retire though? Have you thought about that? She's like, no, I'll figure it out. I'm like, okay, I don't know. Like maybe it's okay. I don't know. I don't have enough information, but like it just seems like a significant change or move. I like being a Canadian because I can pretty much travel anywhere in the world. Everybody loves a Canadian usually, right? Like, come on in. Happy, forgiving Canadians, right? And, it's been great as I traveled the world, but I don't know that that's true for everybody. And I don't know, I haven't traveled to the United Arab Emirates, but I have traveled to other parts of the Middle East, and it's not easy to be a woman, especially a white woman.
Just a woman, period. Like I commend her for doing that. Like when people say they're thinking about that, I'm like, never hold on to this passport, this citizenship as long as you live, because you just never know where the world is going to take you. You don't want to get stuck somewhere and you are legitimately stuck. But like your Canadian passport, my US passport, like it'll help us to skip some lines to get where we need to go.
Oh yeah, and when I was younger, I still have two passports. I have a UK passport and a Canadian passport, and back then UK was part of the EU. I could pretty well travel, live anywhere in Europe, pretty much, and Africa. So, like, I went and lived in Zimbabwe on my UK passport. I worked there. I pull out whatever passports needed to get me through the door, right?
That's so awesome.
But I believe in taking advantage of those kind of things. So, yeah, that's funny. So, what's on the future for Sandra? Have you thought about where you're going next? Like, what do you got going on?
Yeah, so I'm going to head back to Mexico. I want to go back to Querétaro. I was only there for about a month, so the plan is to be there for about 3 to 6 months. And then I was watching this video about Belize, and so I was just like, okay, let me see what they're talking about. And they actually have a retirement program. So if you're like over 45, you can retire there, and all you need to do is make $2,000 a month. And I was just like, okay, yeah, sign me up. What do I need to do?
That's amazing. I want to learn about that.
Yeah, I'll show you. I'll send you the information. Apparently, it's a hidden gem. Like people are buying homes there for like less than $50,000.
I have heard that. That and Ecuador. So on my way back from Chile, I got chatting to a man sitting beside me on the plane. He was Canadian, actually. And he was saying, he goes, you need to go to Ecuador. You need to check out Ecuador. There's a lot of Canadians down there, but it's like one of those kind of like hidden gem places and lots of advantages. And even when you think about, making like a North American income and living in a different economy. Like I have a friend who is retired. He's been my friend since I was like 15 years old. And right now I think he's in Croatia, but he spent like 2 years or something in Southeast Asia. And he's like, Michelle, like my pension, he has a great pension, but he's like, my pension is like, I can live like a king over here. Like I have a maid and somebody who comes cooks food, and like I live on the beach, and I'm like one of the lifestyles of the rich and famous is crazy.
I love it, and that's what I love to hear. You know, like we can do so much with our income elsewhere, as opposed to struggling, right? Trying to buy these $500,000 homes that aren't worth what they're quoted to be, or these high priced cars. I mean, we're losing control here in the United States. I don't know how it is in Canada, but
It's the same. It's the same. Right now, Vancouver, I think, is more expensive than New York and LA.
what?
I know it's crazy. It's crazy. When I was in Greece on Naxos, I was sitting at a cafe having a coffee, and I got chatting to the waiter, and I was like, how much does it cost to buy a house on this island? And he goes, oh, miss, it is so expensive. And I was like, well, what, well, how much? Right? He goes, I just bought a 3-bedroom house. It was 170,000 euros. I was like, are you freaking kidding me? I couldn't buy a parking spot for that where I live, right? Like, what? I'm like, well, I could, let me buy a couple of houses then.
On Airbnb and making some money.
Right? Like, what are we talking about? So, yeah, I think there's definitely something to be said. And I agree. I think that there's some crazy stuff that's going on in our part of the world that is like bananas. And like a friend of mine, her son just spent, I think she said $60,000 on his first vehicle. I'm like, what? Can't do that. Like, I'm like, what vehicle is? I spent $50,000 on a Jeep, but I'm 55, and like, it was brand new and, ready to roll kind of thing. I'm like, your first vehicle? My first vehicle was $2,000. Okay.
Girl, preach. That was not like it was a red box Toyota Camry that I bought for like 2 or 3 grand, and I loved that car. Oh, she was everything to me. I was 16, so I was just like, oh, I'm rolling.
I know, right? It was called a Chevette or a Chevelle or something like that. It was like this little blue car thing. And like, I was like, kind of running down the road. I just thought I was the bomb because I had a car and it wasn't my dad's car kind of thing. Right. So, yeah, I guess it's just different now, judging, not judging or whatever. But yeah, I think things are a little whack, like a doodle over here. And I think that, what you shared is a great reminder for us to really consider how we want to experience our lives. Like what's important to us. Maybe having a house that's really nice is super important, but maybe it's not. Maybe traveling the world is important. Maybe it's not, right? I don't know what it is for everybody. I know for me, like I said earlier, I want to incorporate that more easeful pace of the day in my life. I want to be able to not work for a couple hours during the day and, I don't know, sit outside and have a cup of coffee and read a book or something and not feel guilty about it, right?
That part, I think that's the part. Like we'll do it, but in the back of our mind,
Oh my God, I should be working. Oh my God. Oh my God.
right. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's totally me. Like Saturday, I went out with a girlfriend of mine and whenever we meet up, we just kind of fly by the seat of our pants. We went for a walk along the seawall and we stopped and ate something. We did, I don't know, we did whatever. And there was a little part of me that was like, oh, you should get home and do some work. And I'm like, no, I should not. No, it's a nice day. I've got a good friend. We're talking. I'm enjoying the day. No, I am not going home.
Good. I'm glad you did that.
So thank you so much. If people want to get in touch with you, maybe they're interested in looking at their tax situation because they're thinking of traveling. Maybe they are already traveling and they're in that digital nomad space. We'll put all the links in the show notes, but where do they find you, Sandra?
The easiest place to find me is on LinkedIn. Sandra Morno. I am the only one with that name. Yeah, that's the easiest way.
Awesome. And you mentioned very briefly there in passing, like creating a community of people who are wanting to do this. Is that something you're actively kind of pulling together? And is there like a format to that?
Yeah, so right now it's called Money Smart Travelista, and I created an audio series about it on LinkedIn. I'm just kind of trying to build it out, what I want it to look like, but I really want it to be kind of a safe place for people to ask questions about taxes, about coaching, about like, hey, I need a therapist, or hey, where can I find a yoga teacher who can help me? That's a digital nomad. So I want to build out something like that. So I'm excited about it.
Oh, I'm super excited about that. Like, I'm excited to be able to refer clients to you for taxes, but I am even more excited about the whole travelista piece that I think is super exciting. And so I can't wait to share that with everybody and see your community grow.
Thank you so much. I just love you, Michelle. You are awesome. And I'm so glad that we were able to kind of connect and, grow in this friendship and this business ship that we have.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you're in Belize, I might come visit just to check it out.
Come on over. I will let you know.
Yeah. I've always wanted to go there. So I think, yeah, as soon as you're there, I'm going to hit you up, girlfriend. Thanks for taking the time. And we'll put everything in the show notes so that people can contact you.
Bye.
So I love this episode. Clearly you can see or hear, I guess, that Sandra and I have an incredible friendship. But I think that what she does offer is an incredible, striking balance between traveling and working. And then, of course, the tax angle, right? The tax lens. So if you could work from anywhere in the world, where would you choose? It's not always easy to do. It can present its own form of challenges. And for some people, it's not something they want to do. But for those digital nomads, it is an incredible opportunity to change their life. The idea of working abroad can seem glamorous and fascinating, and it can also seem out of reach. But Sandra has a very pragmatic approach to worldwide remote work that makes the whole experience feel normal and doable. For instance, yes, you do still have to pay your taxes. So you need her. If you are a digital nomad who is an American citizen and you need to file your taxes, she is your go-to gal. I love this conversation with her. I learned a lot, even though I'm not even an American. And now I'm looking for someone out there who does the same thing for Canadians, because there's lots of Canadians who are out there traveling the world, living as digital nomads. And I want to find a tax expert for them. I really love that we got to spend this time today, and I hope that this was an incredible value for you. Join me in next week where we're talking about creating a wealth vision board. Thanks for hanging out with me. I hope you got at least one gold nugget today. Be sure to grab your copy of the Rich Life Revolution workbook to help you set the foundation for your next level of wealthy. Get it now at richliferevolution.ca, and I'll see you later.